Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Sherwood with a Warcraft editor tutorial. Having just completed my own Warcraft map, The Fires of Hearthwood, which I'll link below, I thought it would be helpful to give back after how well the community helped me. This won't cover the basics of how to use it, because I think there are already great tutorials for that by people like Turnro or the Hive community that I'll also link in the description below, but instead, I'd like to cover 5 issues I ran into that I wasn't able to find easy answers to already. Hopefully these will help out a bit, though I must warn that I've only made the one map, so these workarounds might be unnecessary and maybe I just don't understand the editor very well. If you see any suggestions I make that don't make sense, please leave a comment below so I can fix it. So, tip number 1. One of the biggest issues that seems to come with the new Warcraft Reforged editor is that there doesn't seem to be a play button? What I mean is, whenever you go rooting through old forums and old YouTube videos, they talk about how you just go into the game and press the play button under the menus that already exists within the game. It looks like, as of July 2020, there doesn't seem to be any supported features that allow players to actually play their game with the new Warcraft Reforged editor. After researching for a while, it looks like that really just isn't in the game yet. For now, the only real way to play your level is to use the test level button found here at the top of the editor. It roughly gets the job done, but you have to play as the character World Edit, which can sometimes come with issues. Issues like number 2. Tip 2 is, you don't want your player to have to be a certain color just because you were assigned to a certain team. World Edit seems to always want to be the first available player, which is Red Team, so turning off player 1 worked fine, but that meant the Red Team wasn't an option. Instead, I had to make player 3, Teal, the Orc Horde. I didn't want the Orcs to be Teal, however, so I changed them during initialization. See, in the editor, you have triggers that can activate during certain times. One of the most valuable ones for setting up your map is the on initialization trigger. This means the second the map is loaded up, it will do different things. In order for my teal orcs to be red, I made an action within the initialization that turned them red. That's also how I was able to set objects to be invulnerable or others to already be destroyed. This can be seen in tip number 3. Tip number 3 is that one of the absolute best ways I learned throughout this process was by looking at real Blizzard maps. Better yet, not just by playing them in-game, but actually opening them in the editor. You can do that by choosing to open a map and then picking a map you want to learn from. Now, once the map is open, you can look through the triggers and actions that they have put into their own levels to see ways you can do it yourself. Even silly things like where to set the start location for a player if the player isn't actually a building is answered by looking through this map. As you can see, they just dumped them in the corners like I did. Remember, don't feel overwhelmed when you look through all the work they've done. Remember, these are paid professionals who spent hundreds of hours on these maps. Just use them for guidance and inspiration. The best part about this is that, if you're like me, you can use this to closely mirror an authentic Blizzard map as best as you can so that yours looks just as professional. So, tip number 4 is a bit of a weird one that I actually only found out in one of the last milestones for my map. It's that when you go through triggers, they always seem to have layers upon layers of different options. While this is helpful, half of them feel like they lead to dead ends and the other half seem to need coding, something I wasn't prepared for. While I did try to search around as best as I could, a lot of my map required unnecessary, tedious work to get the point across that I wanted. One of the most basic problems? Selecting multiple units with a trigger. Originally, I had a separate event for every single unit that I wanted to act in a certain way. This was incredibly time-consuming, and I'd often even miss a few. What you can do is choose all units within a region. When choosing this option, you can then say that every unit that has been picked by this option will do it. I'd originally only seen the surface level options and wasn't sure how to do anything else with it. This is an absolute lifesaver. And side note, another fun fact I learned far too late is if you want to rotate an object, you don't have to change its properties in the menu. You can just hold control and click around. That would have been nice to know earlier. So, tip number 5. Lastly, sound was a bit of an issue. One of the strange things about the editor that I can only assume is to save memory is that you don't have free access to the entire library of sounds, not off the get-go. Rather, you have to go into the sound editor and specify which sounds you want in the game. The standard ones will be in the game already, such as unit movements and building creations, but if you want something unique to happen, like my hero crying "For King Tyrannus" whenever he casts an ability, you have to actually add that to your sound list. This is done by looking through the sound editor for the one you want, then right-clicking it and clicking Use as Sound. Now when you go into the actions for a trigger and choose Sound, it will be in the list of sounds you can choose from. Additionally, you'll want to make sure that you set the sound itself to turn off 3D if you want it to be heard everywhere. Otherwise, you might be able to run away from the sound, having it fade out, or be unhearable altogether. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 tips that I have for working with the editor. Again, I'm certainly no seasoned veteran like the good folks at Hive.com, so if you have more in-depth questions, I would definitely make sure to check them out. For now, this was Jonathan Sherwood's guide for Warcraft 3 Editor. Thanks for watching.